Anini Jean, would you like for me to tell you a story? Many, many years ago, when our grandmothers were little girls, the people who lived here in this place where we are today called themselves Anishinaabe, the people. And they called this earth Mackinac, the turtle. And they called their grandmothers Nokomis. The people were always grateful to Giizhigad, the creator, for making this beautiful world and putting the people in it. They used rivers like highways, and they traveled all throughout the year from place to place to hunt and gather food to feed themselves and their families. In spring, Giizhigad, they traveled up to the north where the tall Aninatako grow, and there they tapped sweet sap to make Giizhigad. Today we call that maple syrup. In the summer, they picked sweet, delicious strawberries. In the fall, they traveled down rivers where they bent the tall grasses into their canoes and shook off the seeds that grew on the grass. And they would use it to create food that they called Anishinaabe mominin, food for the people. Today, we call those seeds wild rice. In winter, they would travel to hunting grounds where they would hunt for washwashkesh and amik and wagash and wabush, for deer and beaver and fox and rabbits. And they would use that for meat to feed their families, and for the skins to create clothing and to create warm rabbit skin blankets. Some of the Anishinaabe were brave and adventurous enough to travel way to the west and to the south, to the big waters, and there they would bring back silver ornaments and shells. And they would use the silver and the shells to decorate their clothing with the beautiful designs of the woodland flowers. Some new people came to the shores, to the rivers and forests along the mighty Michigame, and those people called themselves voyagers, or sometimes they were known as Hudson Bay traders. They learned from the Anishinaabe how to hunt and fish for the amik and the fox and the wabush, and they learned how to make bulrush baskets and beautiful designs in their clothing. Now, the voyagers wore big shirts with big sleeves, and those sleeves were so good for so many things. You could carry things in them, or you could use them for cleaning your knives, and they even made pretty good handkerchiefs. Now, the voyagers traded the Anishinaabe for their blankets, for their wabush blankets and furs and baskets, and they traded for calico cloth and for velvet and for beads and amber from the forest in the places in their countries that they came from. Now, the Anishinaabe used the beads that they were given to decorate their clothing with the beautiful designs of the woodland flowers. Now, the voyagers came to love the woodlands, and they loved Anishinaabe people. In fact, some of them married Anishinaabe women and raised their families. But you know, more and more of the new people came from their faraway countries. More and more and more of them came until those new people began to believe that this place where the Anishinaabe lived belonged to them, to the new people. And they thought that the Anishinaabe should learn their words and their ways and forget Anishinaabe words and ways. They even told them where they could live. And they told them they should be farmers instead of going from place to place to hunt and fish for their families. Now, I want to tell you about one little girl whose great-grandfather was a Hudson Bay trader. And she lived in a place called White Earth, where her family had been sent to live. She lived with her Pillager Band family there in White Earth. Aina Gokore loved her family. Her home was full of warmth and laughter and kindness, and the sound of her mother's voice that sounded like a song. Every night, Aina Gokode's mother would brush her long black hair, and she would tell her stories about the Wabush and the eagle, and about the mischief maker, Woozy Goozle. She showed Aina Gokode Mizina, pieces of birch bark with stories scratched into them to tell the stories of maple sugaring or paddling on their canoes from Owashtana, that river from a long way off. Aina Gokode's father showed her thick paper mizina that had little words in them, little marks in them that were lined up like beads on a dress or ear or corn. They were called books that had come from her great-grandfather, the Hudson Bay trader. One day, Aina Gokode and her sisters were out picking berries to make pie. And when they came home, they found strangers in their house. And her mother crying. "Oh, my dear one," said her mother, "these people have come to take you and your sisters to a place called a Mizinikan Gamig, where you will learn from their thick paper Mizina, and you will learn to speak their words and know their ways." The people who had come to her house spoke in words that were hard and sharp. They sounded like hammers, and they told Aina Gokode no stories. And she was used to the words of the Anishinaabe. Every word tells a story. Aina Gokode didn't want to go. She clung to her mother's calico skirt as she cried. But those strong hands of those people took her and her sisters away from their families to a train that took them far away to a Mazinigan Gamig, a book place where they were going to learn the words and the ways of the white men. When they got there, Aina Gokode and her sisters slept in little beds all lined up in a row with other little girls. They cried when their beautiful dark hair was cut short. And they laughed when they ate very strange food. When they spoke to each other in the story, song, words of the Anishinaabe, they were told, "Be quiet." They were sent to a classroom where all the children were lined up together, and Aina Gokode was handed a flat black stone and a white stick. One day, an elder woman came around in her black dress, and she said to Aina Gokode what sounded to her like, "Caw, caw, caw." Aina Gokode didn't know what she was talking about. When she shrugged, the woman said, "Caw, caw," and slapped her with a stick. Now, Aina Gokode looked around and she saw that other little girls in that room were marking on the black stone with the little sticks. So the next time the Crow woman came around to caw, caw, caw at her, Aina Gokore looked at her with a little shrug and a giggle, and she scribbled on the black stone. "No, caw, caw," said the Crow woman. "Caw, caw," she said, and she made some marks on that black stone. "Caw, caw, 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 Jane," said the woman. Now, the next time the Crow woman came around, Aina Gokore looked at her and copied the letters that the woman had made. J, A, N, E. Jane, she wrote. "Caw, caw." "Yes," said Crow woman, "your name is Jane." Jane and her sisters clung to each other in that strange place. And when they spoke in those story song words and were told to be quiet, Jane was not a little girl who was able to be very quiet. She learned to say blanket instead of wabush. She learned to say book instead of mazina. She learned to say gamig instead of place. And she learned to call herself Jane. But she never stopped speaking with that voice like her mother's voice that sounded like a song. Now, my grandchildren, I say to you, Bonjour. Deborah Jane Choate, Madison Heights, Giizhigad, White Earth, Minnesota, Nindudum, Pillager Band, Nindau. My beloveds, my name is Deborah Shepherd. I live in Madison Heights. White Earth, Minnesota is my tribal affiliation. Pillager Band is my clan. When I speak the words of the Anishinaabe, I stumble over them. They're not my first language. But I am sure that when I speak these words, they honor my grandmother, Jane. I do not want you to forget the people who still live in this place, the people who call the earth Mackinac, and who are always grateful to the Creator for this beautiful world, who call their grandmothers Nokomis, and whose voices still sound like a song. Miigwech Nijin.